Again, thank you, Governor. Thank you for participating. Thank you for making housing a focus. Many people are not aware that this governor and his administration was the first administration to visit the Louisiana Housing Corporation, the first administration to launch a program with us, Housing Heroes, that won a national award. So I want to again thank you, Governor.
Thank you.
And so as important as we see housing for everyone in this room, why did your administration decide to focus on housing? Why was housing important?
Well, we know that housing is important for quality of life for people, whether they are seniors, whether they are veterans, whether they are children, but especially those who happen to live in distressed communities or in low-income families. But it's determinative of so many things other than just whether you have a roof over your head. So we know obviously without enough affordable housing stock, more people are going to be homeless. If children don't have a good, reliable place to live, they're much more likely to be referred to social agencies. They're not going to do as well at school. They're going to be absent from school. They're going to be involved in the criminal justice system. We also know that whether you're a child or an adult or a senior, homelessness impacts your health. So health outcomes and productivity, it's across the gamut. And so for all of those reasons, we know that housing is important. And we are challenged in many ways in Louisiana with respect to housing, because we have some areas where, quite frankly, we probably have never had enough affordable housing. We've got other areas where, because the economy is performing so well and people are moving into neighborhoods that traditionally had affordable housing, now the rents and the home prices are being elevated to the point where people are being pushed out. So replacing that with affordable housing stock, I think, is incredibly important as well. We've got in Louisiana about 20% of the people who live under the federal poverty line. Half of all people in Louisiana earn $45,000 or less a year. 27% of homeowners, for example, almost half of all renters are cost burden, which means that the cost of housing is 30% or more of what they earn. So it doesn't leave enough for nutrition and transportation and other expenses that are critically important. So for all of those reasons, we're working together with you and the folks at LHC, but also banks and developers and all of the regional housing authorities across the state of Louisiana to make sure that we have a strategic plan and that we actually do better going forward, because we're in housing, just like every area of government, we are more resource constrained than we would like to be. So getting the biggest bang for every dollar that we have becomes even more important. And that's why we have engaged with you and LHC and all of the other partners who are across the room, or in the room here today, and come from across the state of Louisiana.
Thank you, thank you. It's impressive for us to focus on housing, and it's absolutely essential that we all work together. And so your administration has been key in putting us in certain positions. We've expanded our role in disaster recovery, and one of those opportunities was Housing Heroes, which you spearheaded. You helped us lead that effort, and it was a simple effort that required people to just do more to help people. Mm-hmm. Why was that a focus for you? Why did you identify that as a real resource for the citizens of Louisiana?
Well, first of all, if you're like me, and by the way, Louisiana, we have more than our fair share of disasters with respect to hurricanes and floods and tornadoes. But every single time it happens, by the time government responds and we get on the ground, we see that people of Louisiana are already being neighbors to one another, already being heroes to one another. And that's one of the things that inspires me. It's one of the reasons why when I'm introduced as the governor of the great state of Louisiana, I know it's true. Our state is great because of its people. And so we just want the logical extension of that as it relates to housing is to have housing heroes where people are being neighbors to one another. Because the truth is, you all around the state, you see where the needs are before we do. Because you're on the street, you see it, you're talking to people, you're going to church with folks, you're interacting with them at the grocery store or at the Little League ball game. You know what's going on and what's most importantly, what's not going on in terms of housing. And so to create heroes, people who are in the business and know how to make this happen, know how to partner and leverage every single dollar that we can into the biggest possible investment. That's why we wanted to create these heroes. And as you mentioned, very successful effort, an award-winning effort, and I want to thank you for your leadership on that.
No, thank you for giving us an opportunity. And it really is essential. We appreciate the opportunity. We appreciate the opportunity to make housing a focus. We appreciate an opportunity to expand the housing and the role of the state of Louisiana. And the title of this conference is Connections. We believe we serve an essential function, connecting resources with communities, connecting resources with need, and connecting need with resources. And it's something that we've been talking about as we've been here for the last day and a half, and it's something that we feel is very important. How do you see our role? How do you see us as a facilitator, our relationship building ability, and is it a viable part in some of our housing solutions?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously it has to be. The work that you do with respect to affordable housing, but also with helping individuals with energy costs, making sure they're weatherizing their homes. All of this is incredibly important. But your role goes so far beyond housing, although that's the most important thing. As you know, you're on the Council on Homelessness.
Yeah.
You take part in the Workforce and Education Subcommittee that we have, the Task Force on Youth Aging Out of Foster Care, making sure that you have a prominent seat at the table with the Office of Community Development led by Pat Forbes, so that as we prepare for and respond to disasters, you are right there helping us. Because the truth is, before disaster ever hits, we don't have sufficient affordable housing stock. And then as some of that stock is damaged and is no longer habitable, we have a tremendous problem when it comes to recovering from the storm, because we just don't have enough housing. So making sure that we're allocating the proper amount of the Community Development Block Grant disaster recovery funds, for example, to housing is important. But it has to be a collaborative effort. You know, if you're not at the table, and when you come to the table, your position is informed by talking to all of these individuals around the state.
Absolutely.
So without that, we just can't have the comprehensive, effective approach that we need to have. And by the way, we're still recovering from our 2016 floods in March and in August. And, you know, in that year, we had 2 floods that together caused 56 of our 64 parishes to be declared major federal disasters, and neither one of those floods resulted from a hurricane or a named storm. These were basically really nasty thunderstorms that just decided to stay in the same place for several days and drop record amounts of rain. So in March they said we had a 100-year flood, and in August we had a 500-year flood. You know, but we know that as we continue to recover from that, for example, we have a Community Development Block Grant disaster funding that is coming down from the federal government. It's already been appropriated by Congress over a year ago. HUD has yet to issue the Federal Register notice that tells us what the rules will be, so that we can submit the state action plan, get that approved, and actually have that line of credit established. But with the funding we have already received, with this $1.2 billion, for example, your role at housing is incredibly important. And with respect to the housing recovered dollars that we got initially, very helpful, obviously. But we have some issues around duplication of benefits, and they're either going to get resolved in whole or in part or not at all. We then will know how much additional dollars we can put towards affordable housing across the state of Louisiana in those 56 parishes. And so having you not only at the table initially, but throughout that process is incredibly important, so we can make the wisest allocation of those dollars.
Absolutely, and again, it's having us at the table. We have a community that's supporting housing. We have a community that we're organizing to support housing. So anything we can do to continue helping in that effort, I will pledge everyone in this room as a resource to disaster recovery. So again, thank you for these opportunities. And we've touched on a lot of topics and a lot of subjects today. And I would like to just ask you just a couple of more questions as we have your time.
Okay.
Is there a particular area, a particular focus, a particular opportunity you see of something that this agency can accomplish over the next 4 years of your administration? Because I believe we're going to have another 4 years of your administration.
Well, we're working on it. Thank you. So I want to continue to do some of the things like we have been able to do working with you. So, for example, we knew we had an acute need up in East Carroll Parish. One of the poorest parishes in the state of Louisiana. In fact, if you study all the counties in the country, one of the poorest. We knew we didn't have sufficient affordable housing there and haven't had it in maybe ever. But 77 units developed through the Louisiana Housing Corporation. And as I understand it, that's the first housing of its kind ever to go into East Carroll Parish. So that is exciting to me, to bring opportunity to places like East Carroll Parish for the first time. And it's hard to do, because if this was easy, it would have been done already.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
But working with the folks in this room, working with banks, getting it financed, and being creative. But that creativity is going to be needed in completely different settings as well. So you go to New Orleans or maybe Lake Charles, where you have a lot of in-migration, because for decades we had out-migration. Now we have in-migration, and we have well-educated people, or people who are making more money than the people that they're replacing. The cost of housing is going up. People are being displaced, and all of a sudden they can't afford to live in the neighborhoods where their grandparents and their parents lived and where they grew up. So figuring out how we marshal the resources and come up with the strategies for effectively creating more affordable housing is very important. And creativity, but really the teamwork, because nobody is going to have all the answers. But together, I promise you, all the people in this room, we have a way to come up and do this. And so those are the challenges, but those are also the opportunities that we have. And the worst thing we can do is just pretend we don't have an issue, right? And we have to acknowledge that we do. We have to acknowledge that we need to do better, and then we have to be resolved to turn that into action. And that's why I appreciate the work that you all have been doing. And you can't snap your fingers and make it happen where everybody in the state overnight has exactly what they need with respect to housing. But you can know that you're doing better and that you're moving towards the goals like we just talked. And that's what we have to continue to do. And as governor, we're going to continue to work with you on that. And we're going to continue to allow you and the Louisiana Housing Corporation to sit in on other task forces, that not just those dealing with housing, because we know you're an integral part of all of these challenges in the state of Louisiana.
We definitely see ourselves as one of the foundations, and that is a pun. Nobody gets it, but it's a pun. As one of the foundations, we believe that addressing housing gives us the opportunity to really focus on other issues across the state. We see those links between housing, economic development, housing education, housing healthcare, housing transportation, and we just want to make sure that everyone else sees it. And we want to make sure that housing plays a prominent role in every decision made going forward. We see the value, we understand the value, and we know we have your support. And in ending this, if you would like to just have 5 minutes to address the audience, if there's anything that you want to say in closing, or any opportunity you feel this moment drives you towards, Governor, we'd appreciate hearing your words.
Oh, I just want to really thank you, sincerely, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for what you're doing. You're here because you care about our state. You know how important housing is. Not just housing, but affordable housing. And so I want to thank you for that. And you play a lot of different roles. The people in this room, you do. Some of you are nonprofit, some of you for-profit, but you're developers, you're people with financial institutions. But we have some of the best minds anywhere. And when we come together and we collaborate, what we find out is there isn't a challenge we can't overcome. But we have to be willing to put in the time and the effort to sit and talk. And more than talk, you have to listen, because we all like to talk, right? But we have to listen to one another and then figure out how we develop a cohesive strategy out of that. So I want to thank you for that. The other thing is I want you to be optimistic about our state. I am tremendously optimistic. I've never been more optimistic about the state of Louisiana. And just think about where we are today compared to where we were just a few years ago, when we had a deficit, the largest in our state's history. It exceeded $2 billion. And not only were we not investing in housing the way we should have been, we weren't investing in anything the way we should have been, not in education, not in health care. We weren't investing in our Department of Corrections. All of this has changed because we have stabilized. And look, it wasn't easy, and we still have challenges. We're not where we want to be. Nobody's dancing in the end zone, but we are doing so much better in so many ways that now we can start over time, as we are able and as we can afford, to start investing in other critical priorities. And we're already doing that, not just in housing, but you know, we have the lowest percentage of working age adult people who are uninsured in our state's history because of the Medicaid expansion. We no longer have the nation's highest incarceration rate, and we're going to be safer as a result. We are investing in higher education again. And by the way, that's the key to getting investment in our communities that create jobs, is you got to demonstrate that if individuals, if companies from around the country and around the world make that investment in Louisiana, they're going to have access to the talent they need, the educated, skilled, trained workers, that they can be successful. Well, guess what? You can't inspire that confidence if you're cutting higher education. You can't inspire that confidence if you're raising tuition. And for the 8 years before I became governor, we cut higher education and raised tuition, both of those, more than any other state in the nation. But having stabilized things, and we're starting to make those investments, we are now landing the biggest and best economic development projects in our state's history. And that will benefit all of the people of the state of Louisiana and allow us over time to even make more investments in our folks. So I am optimistic about our state. I want you to be, and I want you to join your prayers to mine that we will continue to do better. And I want you to know I sincerely appreciate all of your efforts across the state of Louisiana in so many ways, big and small, to make a positive difference when it comes to affordable housing. And I want to thank you for your leadership.
Well, thank you, Governor. Thank you.
Thank you.